The Galactic Council chamber fell silent as the emergency alert echoed through the massive crystal dome. Ambassador Zektar of the Vortak Empire watched the holographic display with growing horror as red warning signals flashed across multiple star systems. The void WYRM had awakened. "How many casualties this time?" asked Counselor Yilseth, her blue-scaled hands trembling as she accessed the data streams. 17 colonies evacuated. 3 space stations destroyed. The creature consumed an entire moon before moving on, reported General Thakmor, his 4 eyes all focused on the tactical display. "It's heading toward the Terran system." A collective gasp rippled through the chamber. The humans had only recently joined the Galactic Council, bringing with them their strange customs and inexplicable behaviors. Most species found them fascinating yet unpredictable. Now they faced certain extinction. The void WYRM was ancient beyond measure, older than most civilizations. It drifted through space like a living nightmare, a dragon-like creature the size of a small moon. Its scales absorbed all light, making it appear as a moving shadow against the stars. When it fed, entire worlds died. No weapon had ever harmed it. No fleet had ever stopped it. Evacuation was the only option when the beast stirred from its centuries-long slumber. "We must warn them," Yilseth said urgently. "The humans don't understand what they're facing." Zektar activated his communication array and sent an emergency transmission to Earth. The response came faster than expected. Captain Sarah Chen's image appeared on the main screen, her brown eyes calm despite the urgent warning she'd just received. "Captain Chen, you must evacuate your system immediately," Zektar said without preamble. "The void WYRM has awakened. It destroyed the Kepler colonies yesterday. Your world lies directly in its path." Sarah's expression remained steady. "Thank you for the warning, Ambassador. How long do we have? Perhaps 3 of your days, maybe less. The creature travels faster than our best ships when it's actively hunting. And there's no way to stop it?" General Thakmor stepped forward. "Captain, my people have fought the WYRM for over 2,000 years. We've thrown everything at it. Antimatter weapons, quantum disruptors, entire battle fleets. Nothing works. It simply absorbs the energy and grows stronger." Sarah nodded slowly. "I understand. Thank you for the warning. Chin out." The transmission ended, leaving the council chamber in stunned silence. "That's it?" Yilseth asked incredulously. "No panique? No desperate pleas for help?" Zektar's tentacles writhed with anxiety. "Humans are strange, but they're not suicidal. They'll evacuate." 3 days passed. The void WYRM emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, its massive form blotting out stars as it moved. Council monitoring stations tracked its approach toward Earth. Every species in the galaxy watched, waiting for the inevitable exodus of refugee ships fleeing the doomed world. The ships never came. Instead, scanners detected something impossible. A single small craft had launched from Earth, heading directly toward the void WYRM. The vessel was barely larger than a personal transport, insignificant against the creature's massive bulk. "Are they insane?" General Thakmor roared. "That ship wouldn't even qualify as an appetizer for the WYRM." The small craft continued its approach, broadcasting on all frequencies. The message reached the council chamber moments later. "Hello, beautiful dragon," came a young voice, speaking in slightly accented galactic standard. "My name is Emma. I'm 7 years old. I brought you something." The entire council stared at the display in shock. A human child was flying directly toward the most dangerous predator in the galaxy. "Someone stop that ship," Yilseth shouted. "With what?"
Zektar replied helplessly.
"Our nearest vessels are light years away. Even if we had ships in the system, what could we do? The WYRM would destroy anything that gets close." On the tactical display, they watched the impossible scene unfold. The tiny human ship continued its approach while the void WYRM, instead of immediately destroying it, seemed to pause. The creature's massive head turned toward the approaching vessel. "Dragon, can you hear me?" Emma's voice continued over the comm. "I know you're probably hungry. Everyone's always talking about how you eat moons and stuff. But I brought you something better. Mama made cookies." The council members looked at each other in bewilderment. Cookies? Against a cosmic horror that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia? The Void WRM's response was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of unleashing its devastating energy beams, the creature simply watched as the small ship approached. Its massive eyes, each larger than a city, focused on the tiny vessel with what almost seemed like curiosity. "There you are," Emma said as her ship drew closer. "You're even more beautiful than in the pictures. Your scales are so shiny, like black diamonds. I bet you feel lonely out here all by yourself." Ambassador Zektar's data analysts worked frantically, trying to understand what they were witnessing. The WRM's energy readings had changed. The massive spikes that usually preceded its feeding frenzies had stabilized into something resembling calm. "This is impossible," muttered Dr. Kevlin, the Council's chief xenobiologist. "The Void WYRM doesn't respond to communication. It doesn't show curiosity. It's a force of nature, not an intelligent being." "Tell that to the human child," Yilseth whispered. Emma's ship had closed to within a few hundred meters of the WRM's head. At this distance, the creature could have swallowed the vessel without effort. Instead, it remained perfectly still. "I'm going to open my cargo bay now," Emma announced. "I'm not trying to hurt you or anything. See? Just cookies. Mama makes the best chocolate chip cookies in the whole galaxy. Well, maybe just on Earth, but I think they're really good." The ship's small cargo bay opened, revealing several containers floating in the vacuum. The Void WRM's massive head moved closer, examining the offering with one enormous eye. "The bio readings are off the charts," reported Scantech Mordun from his monitoring station. "The creature's showing neural activity patterns we've never recorded before. It's like it's thinking." Emma's voice continued, gentle and patient. "You don't have to eat them if you don't want to. I just thought you might like something different. Everyone always runs away when they see you, but I think that's mean. You're probably just misunderstood." The Void WYRM did something then that shattered every assumption the galaxy had about its nature. It opened its mouth and gently drew in one of the containers. Not with the violent consumption that had destroyed countless worlds, but with delicate precision. For several minutes, nothing happened. The creature remained motionless as if processing this entirely new experience. Then, incredibly, it moved its massive head closer to Emma's ship and made a sound. The deep, resonant tone that emerged from the WYRM was nothing like its usual roars of destruction. This was softer, almost musical. The frequency analyzers struggled to classify it. "It's purring," Dr. Kevlin said in disbelief. "The Void WRM is purring?" Emma giggled over the calm. "You do like them. I told Mama you would. She wanted to send a whole fleet with weapons and stuff, but I said that was silly. You just needed a friend." The impossible scene continued as the WYRM carefully consumed the remaining containers. Each time, its massive head moved closer to the small ship, and each time, Emma responded with more cheerful chatter. "You're so gentle," she said. "I bet if people just talked to you nicely, you wouldn't have to destroy their stuff. Maybe you're just trying to ask for help, but no one understands dragon language." The Void WRM's response was to lower its enormous head until it was level with Emma's ship. Then, with movements that defied its massive size, it gently nuzzled the small vessel. Every monitoring station in the galaxy registered the same impossible readings. The Void WRM, destroyer of worlds, was showing affection to a human child. "This changes everything," Zektar breathed. "If the creature can be reasoned with, if it's truly intelligent. If a 7-year-old human can make friends with it," Yilseth added. "Then we've been approaching this all wrong for thousands of years." Emma's voice crackled over the comm again. "I have to go home now. Mama says I have school tomorrow. But maybe I can come visit again? Would you like that?" The WYRM's response was unmistakable. It lifted its head and released a sound that resonated across multiple frequencies. A complex harmony that the translation matrices interpreted as agreement, even eagerness. "I'll take that as a yes," Emma laughed. "Oh, and if you get hungry again, maybe try asking nicely first? I bet lots of people would be happy to share their food if they knew you were friendly." "Bye, dragon." The small ship began its journey back toward Earth, leaving the Void WYRM floating peacefully in space. For the first time in recorded history, the creature made no move to attack or consume anything. It simply watched the human ship depart, its massive form somehow conveying a sense of contentment. In the council chamber, the implications of what they'd witnessed began to sink in. The greatest threat in galactic history had just been neutralized by a child with homemade cookies and genuine kindness. "We need to contact the human leadership immediately," Zektar said, his voice shaking slightly. "This Emma. She may have just saved countless worlds." General Thakmore was reviewing the tactical data with growing amazement. The WYRM's aggressive patterns have completely disappeared. Its energy signature has shifted to something I've never seen before. It's like the creature has become domesticated. Not domesticated, Dr. Kevlin corrected. Befriended. There's a significant difference. The Void WYRM responded to genuine emotional connection, not submission or control. Yilseth was already composing messages to every major government in the galaxy. "We need to completely revise our understanding of the WYRM. And we need to study human methods of interspecies communication. Clearly, we've been missing something fundamental." As the small human ship disappeared into the distance, the Void WYRM remained where Emma had left it, no longer a mindless destroyer but a lonely creature that had finally found a friend. The galaxy would never be the same. The human colony ship Harmony drifted through the outer regions of the Sol system, conducting routine asteroid mining operations when the impossible happened. The Void WYRM appeared. Mining supervisor Chunwei, Emma's father, watched through the observation deck as the massive creature materialized from hyperspace barely 1,000 kilometers away. His crew immediately triggered emergency protocols, sealing bulkheads and preparing escape pods. Yet something was different this time. The WYRM wasn't attacking. It floated peacefully in space, its obsidian scales catching starlight as it slowly turned toward their ship. Chun Wei had heard the reports from the council, the unbelievable story of his daughter's encounter with the creature. But seeing the legendary destroyer up close still sent chills through his spine. His communication officer, Lieutenant Torres, received an incoming transmission. "Sir, we're getting a message. It's from Earth. From your daughter." Emma's excited voice filled the bridge. "Daddy, is that you near my friend? Can you say hi for me? Tell the dragon I said hello and that Mama's making more cookies." Chun Wei stared at the massive creature, watching as it seemed to respond to Emma's voice even across the vast distance. The WYRM's enormous head tilted toward their ship, and, incredibly, it made that same musical sound Emma had described. "Respond to my daughter," Chun Wei ordered quietly. "Tell her we'll relay the message." As the crew watched in amazement, Chun Wei opened a general comm channel. "Greetings, Void WYRM. I am Chun Wei, Emma's father. She asked me to tell you hello and that her mother is making more cookies." The response was immediate and astounding. The creature's entire demeanor shifted, becoming visibly more animated. It moved closer to the Harmony with careful, deliberate movements that spoke of intelligence and restraint. When it was close enough, it gently tapped the ship's hull with one massive claw. A gesture so precise it caused no damage despite the creature's enormous size. Dr. Sarah Kim, the ship's xenobiologist, was frantically recording everything. "The neural activity readings are incredible. This creature is showing complex emotional responses. It's not just intelligent, it's forming emotional attachments." Word of the second encounter spread throughout the galaxy faster than hyperspace communications. Species that had lived in terror of the Void WYRM for millennia suddenly found themselves questioning everything they thought they knew. On the council world of Nexus Prime, emergency sessions convened around the clock. Ambassador Zektar found himself in the unprecedented position of mediating between various faction leaders who all wanted to understand the human method of dealing with existential threats. "This cannot be mere coincidence," declared Prime Minister Veltok of the Centauri Federation. "Two encounters, two peaceful resolutions. The humans possess some technique we lack." Admiral Krexvier, commander of the Galactic Defense Force, was less convinced. "One child's success does not constitute a proven strategy. What if the creature was simply having a good day?" "Good days don't last for weeks," Dr. Kevlin pointed out. "Our long-range sensors show the WYRM has maintained its peaceful behavior patterns since the initial encounter. No aggressive actions, no feeding frenzies. It's taken up residence in the outer Sol system and appears to be waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For Emma," Yilseth said softly. The creature has formed an attachment to a human child. The implications are staggering. Meanwhile, on Earth, Emma's life had become considerably more complicated. Government officials, xenobiologists, and military commanders all wanted to study her, interview her, and understand how she'd accomplished the impossible. Her mother, Dr. Lisa Chun, a renowned physicist, had become her daughter's fierce protector against the sudden influx of attention. "She's 7 years old," Lisa said firmly to the assembled officials in their living room. "She made friends with something she thought was lonely. There's no secret technique or special training involved." General Morrison, representing Earth's Space Defense Command, leaned forward in his chair. "Dr. Chun, with respect, your daughter has neutralized the greatest threat in galactic history. We need to understand how." Emma, who had been coloring quietly in the corner, looked up from her drawings. "It's not hard. You just have to be nice." The dragon was sad because nobody liked her. Her? Dr. Patricia Vance, Earth's leading xenopsychologist, asked with interest. Emma nodded matter-of-factly. "Of course she's a girl. You can tell by how she moves. And she's not mean, she's just really, really hungry all the time. But not for food. She's hungry for friends." The adult conversation paused as they processed a 7-year-old's casual analysis of an ancient cosmic horror's psychological needs. "Emma," Dr. Vance said gently, "when you talked to the dragon, did you feel anything special? Any strange sensations or thoughts?" Emma considered this seriously. "She felt warm inside my head, like when Grandma hugs me. She's just lonely because she's too big and everyone's scared of her." Lisa Chun watched the officials exchange meaningful glances and stepped forward protectively. "That's enough questions for today. Emma has homework." As the government representatives filed out, they carried with them a sobering realization. Humanity's approach to the void WYRM wasn't based on advanced technology or superior tactics. It was based on empathy, the simple ability to recognize another being's emotional needs and respond with kindness. The Galactic Council's response to this revelation was mixed. Some species found the concept fascinating and wanted to learn more about human emotional intelligence. Others found it disturbing that such a fundamental approach had never occurred to them. The Zephyrians, known throughout the galaxy for their logical approach to problem-solving, sent a delegation to Earth specifically to study human psychology. Ambassador Quindar, their lead representative, arrived with a team of behavioral scientists. "We wish to understand this empathy concept," Quindar explained to Dr. Lisa Chun during their formal meeting. "Our analysis suggests it involves temporarily abandoning logical assessment in favor of emotional projection." Lisa smiled. "It's simpler than that. Empathy is recognizing that other beings have feelings and needs just like we do. But the void WRM is not like you," Quindar pointed out. "It is a massive predator that has destroyed countless civilizations. And yet it responds to kindness," Lisa replied, "which suggests that underneath all that destructive behavior, there was a thinking, feeling being who was never given a chance to be understood." The conversation was interrupted by Emma's excited voice from the garden. "Mama!" The dragon's back. Through the window, they could see the impossible sight of the void WRM's massive form hovering in Earth's upper atmosphere. Rather than causing panic, the creature's presence seemed almost peaceful. It made no aggressive moves, simply floating in place as if waiting for something. Emma ran inside, her face bright with excitement. "Can I go see her?" She came back just like she promised. Lisa looked at the assembled officials and aliens, then at her daughter's eager expression. The weight of galactic history seemed to rest on her shoulders. "Only if you take the proper safety precautions," she said finally. "And only for a short visit." An hour later, Emma's small shuttle approached the void WIRM once again. This time, however, she wasn't alone. Dr. Vance accompanied her, along with a full diplomatic escort that maintained a respectful distance. "Hello again, beautiful," Emma called out as her ship drew near. "I brought the cookies Mama promised, and I brought a friend. Dr. Vance wants to meet you properly." The WRM's response was immediate and warm, that same musical purr that had amazed the galaxy weeks before. It moved closer to Emma's ship with obvious affection, gently nuzzling the hull with its massive snout. Dr. Vance, monitoring from her position in the shuttle, recorded readings unlike anything in xenopsychology literature. The creature is exhibiting clear signs of joy and anticipation. Its brain patterns suggest complex emotional processing. Of course she's happy, Emma said. She missed me. We're best friends now. The Void WRM seemed to understand that Emma had brought a companion. It turned one massive eye toward Dr. Vance, studying her with obvious intelligence. Then, incredibly, it made a different sound, a lower, more questioning tone. She's asking about you, Emma interpreted confidently. I told her you're nice and you want to be friends too. Dr. Vance, despite her scientific training, found herself responding instinctively to the situation. Hello, Void WYRM.
I'm Dr. Vance.
Emma has told me wonderful things about you. The creature's response was a gentle rumble of what could only be described as approval. For the next hour, the galaxy watched as a human child and a human scientist engaged in the first formal diplomatic contact with the Void WIRM. Emma served as translator, somehow understanding the creature's various sounds and movements well enough to facilitate actual communication. Through this unprecedented exchange, they learned that the Void WIRM had a name, or at least a concept of self that translated roughly to Starwing. They learned that she was indeed female, ancient beyond measure, and had been alone for so long that she'd forgotten how to communicate with other beings. Most importantly, they learned that her destructive feeding wasn't malicious hunger, but a desperate attempt to fill an emotional void. She consumed worlds not for sustenance, but because the brief moments of connection with living beings, even in their final moments, were the only companionship she could find. She never meant to hurt anyone, Emma explained to the listening galaxy. She just didn't know how else to not be alone. The implications sent shockwaves through every civilization. The greatest threat in galactic history had been nothing more than a lonely being crying out for friendship in the only way she knew how. As Emma's shuttle prepared to return to Earth, Starwing made one final gesture that would be remembered throughout galactic history. She carefully extended one massive claw and gently touched the side of Emma's ship, a deliberate, affectionate farewell that spoke of genuine friendship. I'll visit again soon, Emma promised. And maybe next time, some of my friends from school can meet you too. You'd like them. They're really nice. Starwing's responding song of joy could be heard across multiple star systems, a harmony of hope that marked the beginning of a new age in galactic relations. 3 months after first contact with Starwing, the galaxy faced its first real test of the new relationship. The Corellian Empire, a militant species known for their aggressive expansion policies, had been conspicuously absent from the council sessions discussing the Void WYRM situation. Their silence, it turned out, was due to planning. Admiral Vextar of the Corellian Navy stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion, watching his fleet of 300 warships move into position around the Sol system. For generations, his people had been told that the Void WYRM was invincible, an unstoppable force that made expansion beyond certain sectors impossible. Now they knew the truth. It was just another creature, one that had been tamed by a primitive species. Target the human homeworld, Vextar ordered his weapons commander. If we can destroy their population centers before the WYRM responds, we can claim the creature for ourselves. The Corellian strategy was simple. Eliminate the humans who had somehow bonded with the Void WYRM, then use superior firepower to force the creature into submission. They had studied the recordings of Emma's encounters and concluded that the child was some sort of psychic anomaly. Remove her and her species, and the WYRM would return to its previous behavior patterns, which they believed they could control through fear and force. The attack came without warning. Corellian ships dropped out of hyperspace across the Sol system, immediately targeting Earth's orbital defense platforms and lunar installations. Plasma bolts and antimatter missiles streaked through space as humanity's modest fleet scrambled to respond. Captain Sarah Chun, now commanding Earth's primary defense station, watched the tactical display with growing concern. We're outnumbered 20-1. Our shields won't hold under this kind of bombardment. Earth's ground-based communication arrays were already damaged, cutting off contact with Emma's family. The Corellians had done their homework, striking first at humanity's ability to coordinate with their unusual ally. High above the orbital battle, Starwing sensed the violence erupting in her new home system. The massive creature had spent the past months peacefully exploring the outer planets, learning about her new human friends and their fascinating civilization. She had been particularly enchanted by Earth's children, who, unlike most adults, showed no fear when communicating with her through long-range transmissions. The sound of weapons fire and the destruction of human ships sent waves of distress through Starwing's consciousness. These weren't the usual territorial disputes between species that she had observed throughout the galaxy. This was a deliberate attack on her friends, her first real friends in millennia of lonely existence. Admiral Vextar smiled as his ships overwhelmed Earth's defenses. "Where is the great void WRM now?" he asked mockingly. "Perhaps it only responds to children's birthday parties." His satisfaction lasted exactly 37 seconds. The space around the Corellian fleet suddenly darkened as Starwing materialized from hyperspace directly above the largest concentration of attacking ships. Unlike her gentle approach to Emma's vessel, her arrival this time was accompanied by gravitational distortions that sent several smaller ships spinning out of control. "There it is,"
Vextar hoted.
"All ships, open fire. Bring that creature down." The Corellian fleet unleashed everything they had. Antimatter torpedoes, quantum disruptors, plasma cannons, and exotic particle beams all converged on Starwing's massive form. The energy barrage was impressive, visible from 3 star systems away as it struck the void WRM's obsidian scales. And then something happened that no Corellian had anticipated. Starwing absorbed every single shot. Her scales, which had always been naturally resistant to energy weapons, now seemed to actively consume the attacks. But, more than that, she seemed to be converting the hostile energy into something else entirely. The first sign of change was her scales. Where before they had been deepest black, they now began to glow with an inner fire. Patterns of light raced across her massive form, like circuits awakening in some vast living machine. Her eyes, already enormous, blazed with an intensity that made looking directly at her painful. "What's happening?"
Vextar demanded.
"Why isn't she taking damage?" His science officer checked the readings and paled. "Admiral, the energy output from our weapons isn't dissipating. It's being stored, concentrated. The creature's mass is increasing." Starwing had indeed grown larger, fed by the very weapons meant to destroy her. But size wasn't the only change. For the first time in recorded history, she opened her massive jaws and spoke in a voice that thundered across multiple dimensions. "Why do you hurt my friends?" The words weren't transmitted through normal communications. They bypassed technology entirely, reaching directly into the minds of every being in the Sol system. The Corellian crews found themselves momentarily paralyzed by the sheer force of her mental presence. Admiral Vextar recovered first, driven by desperation. "Continue firing. It's just an intimidation tactic." Starwing's response was swift and terrible. She didn't use the devastating energy beams that had destroyed moons in the past. Instead, she demonstrated a precision that spoke of intelligence rather than mere instinct. With surgical accuracy, she disabled every Corellian ship's weapons systems using focused gravitational pulses. Not destroyed, disabled. The ships remained intact, their crews unharmed, but completely defenseless. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Corellian fleet found itself floating helplessly in space. "This is impossible," Vextar whispered. "The creature is supposed to destroy everything. It doesn't take prisoners." Starwing's massive head turned toward the Corellian flagship, and when she spoke again, her mental voice was filled with a sadness that surprised everyone who heard it. "I was alone for so long. I did terrible things because I didn't understand. These small ones showed me kindness when everyone else showed fear. Why do you want to hurt them?" The question hung in space like a physical presence. For the first time, a Corellian crew found themselves face to face with the creature they'd planned to enslave, and they realized it wasn't a monster at all. It was a being capable of grief, friendship, and profound loneliness. On Earth, Emma had managed to reach one of the emergency communication stations despite the ongoing attack. Her small voice crackled through the interference as she broadcast on all frequencies. "Starwing, are you okay? I felt you being sad and scared." The change in the void WIRM was immediate. Her threatening posture softened, and when she responded, her mental voice was gentle once again. "Little star friend, I am protecting you as you protected me. These others tried to hurt your people." Emma's next words would be quoted in history books across the galaxy. "But they're probably scared too. Maybe if we talk to them nicely, they'll understand and want to be friends." Silence filled space as every being in the Sol system processed the idea of a 7-year-old human child suggesting diplomacy with an invading fleet while a cosmic horror floated nearby, awaiting her advice. Admiral Vextar, listening to the exchange, felt something he'd never experienced before: shame. His entire military career had been built on the principle that might makes right, that superior force was the ultimate solution to any problem. Yet here was a child suggesting that understanding might be more powerful than weapons. "Admiral," his communications officer said quietly, "we're receiving a transmission from the Galactic Council. They're demanding we withdraw immediately and submit to mediation." Vextar looked at the tactical display showing his helpless fleet, then at the massive creature that could have destroyed them all but had chosen restraint instead. Finally, he looked at his crew, many of whom were staring at him with expressions he'd never seen before. "Open a channel," he said finally. "All frequencies." When the connection established, Vextar's voice carried a weight of defeat and something else, perhaps the beginning of understanding. "This is Admiral Vextar of the Corellian Navy. We surrender to the human child and her dragon." Emma's giggle echoed across the communication channels. "You don't have to surrender. You just have to stop being mean. Starwing doesn't want to hurt anybody. She just wants friends." Starwing's massive head moved closer to the Corellian ships, and her mental voice touched each crew member individually. What they experienced in that moment of contact would be debated by philosophers and scientists for generations. Some described it as seeing the universe through ancient eyes that had witnessed the birth and death of countless stars. Others spoke of feeling and loneliness so profound it made their own isolation seem trivial. But all agreed on one thing. They understood, for the first time, that the Void WIRM wasn't a weapon to be controlled or a threat to be eliminated. She was a person vastly different from themselves, but fundamentally seeking the same things they all wanted: companionship, understanding, and a place to belong. "I apologize," Admiral Vextar said, his voice barely steady. I did not understand. We thought you were a mindless destroyer." Starwing's response carried forgiveness that few species would have shown to those who had just attempted genocide. "Understanding grows slowly, like stars forming from dust. I forgive your fear. Will you help me learn to be better friends with the galaxy?" The aftermath of the Corellian incident spread throughout known space faster than hyperspace communications. Within days, representatives from hundreds of species were requesting permission to visit the Sol system, not to study humanity's weapons or defenses, but to learn about their methods of communication and empathy. The Corellian fleet remained in the Sol system for 3 weeks, not as prisoners but as guests. Emma insisted on personally meeting with small groups of Corellian officers, sharing cookies and stories while Starwing provided translation when needed. By the time they left, many of the Corellian crew members had become advocates for peaceful contact with other species. Admiral Vextar's final report to the Corellian High Command would become one of the most influential documents in galactic history. "We have encountered a force more powerful than all our weapons combined. It is called friendship, and the humans have mastered it in ways we are only beginning to understand." The implications of Starwing's restraint during the crisis weren't lost on military leaders throughout the galaxy. She had demonstrated the ability to disable an entire fleet without causing casualties, a level of precision and control that suggested her previous destructive behavior had indeed been driven by emotional distress rather than malicious intent. More importantly, she had shown that her loyalty to humanity wasn't just about Emma's individual friendship. She saw herself as a protector of the entire species that had shown her kindness. Any future threats to human space would have to contend not just with Earth's military, but with an ancient cosmic entity who had chosen to stand as their guardian. For Emma, the crisis had been just another opportunity to make new friends. As she waved goodbye to the departing Corellian ships from her family's backyard, Starwing's massive form visible as a gentle shadow against the stars, she was already planning her next project. "Mama," she said thoughtfully, "do you think there are other lonely dragons out there? Maybe Starwing knows where to find them." The revelation that Starwing might not be unique sent shockwaves through galactic civilization. Within the Galactic Council's deepest archives, xenoarchaeologists began cross-referencing ancient destruction patterns with Starwing's known history. What they discovered challenged everything they thought they knew about cosmic catastrophes. Dr. Kevlin presented his findings to an emergency council session, his multiple eyes bright with excitement and terror. We've identified at least 7 similar destruction patterns throughout recorded history. Events we attributed to natural disasters, supernovas, or unknown weapons were likely encounters with other void WIRMS. Ambassador Zektar studied the holographic timeline floating above the conference table. 7 others? Where are they now? Unknown. The patterns suggest they eventually moved beyond known space, possibly into the void between galaxies. If Emma is correct about these beings being lonely, they may have gone searching for others of their kind. Counselor Yilseth leaned forward, her scaled brow furrowed with concern. Or they're still out there, waiting. If Starwing's presence in our galaxy was part of a larger migration pattern, the implications hung heavy in the chamber air. One void WIRM had nearly paralyzed galactic civilization for millennia. 7 more could end it entirely. On Earth, Emma was having a very different conversation about the same topic. She sat in her backyard garden, finger-painting while talking to Starwing through their unique mental connection. The massive creature floated in high orbit, visible as a distant star that occasionally moved against the celestial backdrop. "You feel sad when you think about your family?" Emma said, not looking up from her artwork. "Do you miss them?" Starwing's mental voice carried centuries of grief. "They went away long ago, little star friend. When the galaxy was young, we were many. But as civilizations grew, they feared us. Some of my kin grew angry and destroyed worlds in their pain. Others grew tired and slept in the deep cold between stars. I am the last to remain awake." Emma considered this with the serious thoughtfulness that only children can bring to cosmic problems. Maybe they're not gone. Maybe they're just hiding because they're sad too. Perhaps. But the galaxy is vast and my kin can sleep for millions of years. Even if they live, they are beyond my ability to find. Emma smiled, adding another bright splash of color to her painting. "Good thing you have friends now. We're really good at finding things." The child's simple confidence in humanity's problem-solving abilities would prove remarkably prescient. Within hours of Dr. Kevlin's presentation to the Council, Earth's xenological research teams had begun developing what they called the WIRM search protocol. Dr. Lisa Chun found herself leading an unprecedented scientific collaboration. The project brought together Earth's best minds with researchers from dozens of species, all working toward a single goal: locating dormant void WIRMS before they awoke hungry and confused. "The key is understanding their hibernation patterns," explained Dr. Sarah Kim during a planning session. "Starwing has provided data about their metabolic needs and preferred environments. They choose locations rich in cosmic radiation and gravitational anomalies." Captain Sarah Chun, Emma's aunt and now Earth's primary liaison with Starwing, reviewed the search parameters. "That describes about half the dangerous regions in known space. How do we narrow it down?" The answer came from an unexpected source. Emma had been present during several conversations between human scientists and Starwing, serving as an emotional interpreter when the ancient being's concepts didn't translate well. During one such session, she made an observation that no adult had considered. "Starwing dreams about her family," Emma announced during a video conference with the research team. "She told me they like to sleep near pretty things, like the swirly lights around black holes and the singing crystals in nebulae." Dr. Lisa Chun looked at her daughter with new understanding. "Aesthetics. They choose hibernation sites based on beauty, not just energy sources." This insight revolutionized the search protocol. Instead of focusing solely on functional criteria, the teams began mapping locations that combined energy abundance with natural beauty, stellar nurseries where new stars were born, binary systems with elaborate gravitational dances, and regions where cosmic phenomena created spectacular displays of light and color. The first discovery came 6 weeks later. A deep space monitoring station in the Andromeda Array detected gravitational anomalies near the Veil Nebula that matched Starwing's descriptions of WIRM hibernation signatures. The sleeping giant was cocooned in crystallized cosmic dust, nearly invisible except for the subtle way spacetime bent around its massive form. "We found one," Dr. Kim announced to the assembled team. "It's been dormant for approximately 12,000 years." The question of how to proceed sparked intense debate throughout the galaxy. Many species advocated for leaving sleeping WIRMS undisturbed, arguing that awakening them posed unacceptable risks. Others suggested immediate evacuation of nearby systems as a precaution. Emma had a different idea. "We should wake her up gently," she told her parents over breakfast. Like when Mama wakes me up on school mornings. If you're nice about it, people wake up happy. If you're loud and scary, they wake up grumpy. The concept of gentle awakening became the foundation for humanity's first planned contact with a hibernating void WYRM. The mission would require careful coordination between multiple species, extensive safety protocols, and Emma's direct involvement as both translator and emotional guide. The expedition ship Harmony's Hope departed Earth 3 months later, carrying a crew of 50 volunteers from 12 different species. Emma traveled with her parents and a full diplomatic escort, while Starwing followed at a discreet distance, ready to intervene if her hibernating kin reacted poorly to the awakening. As they approached the Veil Nebula, the sight of the sleeping void WYRM took everyone's breath away. She was smaller than Starwing, perhaps only half her size, and her scales had taken on an opalescent quality that reflected the nebula's multicolored gases. Crystalline formations had grown around her over millennia, creating a natural cathedral of cosmic ice and stardust. "She's beautiful," Emma whispered, pressing her face to the observation port, like a sleeping princess in a crystal castle. Dr. Vance monitored the creature's life signs while the ship took position at a safe distance. Minimal neural activity, but there are periodic spikes that suggest active dreaming. Her energy absorption is at the lowest possible level, just enough to maintain life functions. The awakening process took 3 days. Rather than using technological means, the team followed Emma's suggestion of gradually increasing emotional warmth in the area. They broadcast gentle music, transmitted peaceful images from various worlds, and, most importantly, Emma spoke to the sleeping WYRM with the same natural kindness she'd shown Starwing. "Hello, beautiful sleeper," Emma said softly into the communication array. "My name is Emma, and I'd like to be your friend. Your sister Starwing told me about you. She misses you very much." The response was subtle at first, a slight increase in neural activity, a barely perceptible shift in position. Over the course of hours, the hibernating WYRM began to stir, her massive form slowly breaking free from its crystalline cocoon. When she finally opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was Emma's small ship broadcasting messages of welcome and friendship. Unlike Starwing's awakening after millennia of isolation, this WYRM awakened to immediate acceptance and warmth. Her first words, transmitted directly to every mind in the system, were filled with wonder rather than confusion. "Little ones sing to me in the deep sleep. Are you real? Or am I still dreaming?" Emma giggled with delight. "We're real. And we're really happy to meet you. Starwing is here too. But she's staying far away so you don't feel crowded when you wake up." The newly awakened WYRM's joy at learning her sister still lived created a psychic resonance that could be felt across multiple star systems. When Starwing finally approached for their reunion, the emotional intensity of their meeting temporarily disrupted hyperspace communications throughout the sector. The galaxy watched in amazement as two ancient beings, separated by eons of loneliness, embraced in the cosmic void while a human child served as mediator and friend to both. "This changes our entire understanding of cosmic ecology," Dr. Kevlin observed from the Council monitoring station. "These beings aren't solitary predators. They're a social species that was fragmented by galactic expansion." The second void WYRM, who chose the name Dreamweaver after Emma's description of her crystal cocoon, proved to be different from Starwing in temperament and abilities. Where Starwing was protective and nurturing, Dreamweaver was curious and artistic, fascinated by the creative expressions of various species. Her first request, after reuniting with her sister, was to see examples of art from different worlds. The subsequent cultural exchange would become legendary, a cosmic entity collaborating with galactic artists to create sculptures from reformed asteroids and paintings across the surfaces of barren moons. But more discoveries were coming. The success of the first awakening had identified patterns that led to locating more hibernating WYRMs. Each discovery brought new challenges and new opportunities for friendship. Emma, now 8 years old and inadvertently the galaxy's most important diplomat, accepted each new responsibility with the same cheerful determination she brought to her homework and chores. "It's not hard," she explained to a gathering of world leaders who had come to Earth seeking guidance. "They're just really old people who've been lonely for a long time. All they need is for someone to be nice to them." The adults in the room exchanged glances, each thinking the same thing. If only all diplomatic crises could be resolved with cookies and genuine kindness. In the depths of space, 6 more void WYRMS continued their ancient slumber, unaware that the galaxy was slowly learning to welcome, rather than fear, their eventual awakening. The age of cosmic loneliness was ending, replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history. A time when the universe's most powerful beings had finally found their place among friends. 2 years had passed since Emma first offered cookies to a lonely dragon, and the galaxy had transformed in ways no one could have predicted. The Void WYRM crisis that had terrorized civilizations for millennia had become the Void WYRM Renaissance, as 5 of the 7 ancient beings had been successfully awakened and integrated into galactic society. Emma, now 9 years old, stood before the largest gathering in Galactic Council history. Representatives from over 3,000 species had come to witness the signing of the Cosmic Friendship Accords, a treaty that formally recognized Void WYRMS as sovereign entities and established protocols for peaceful coexistence. "I still think this is silly," Emma said into the vast assembly's translation systems, her small voice carrying to every corner of the amphitheater. "You don't need treaties to be friends. You just have to be nice to each other." Gentle laughter rippled through the crowd, not mockery, but the warm amusement of beings who had learned to appreciate human wisdom in its purest form. The child who had saved the galaxy through simple kindness remained wonderfully unchanged by her cosmic significance. Starwing's massive form cast a protective shadow over the council chambers as she floated in the specially designed observation space above the assembly. Her mental voice touched every present mind as she spoke. "The small ones teach us what we had forgotten in our loneliness. That understanding grows best in soil of patience and care." Dreamweaver hovered nearby, her scales shimmering with artistic patterns that reflected her current mood, joy mixed with anticipation. "Today marks the beginning of the Great Awakening. My sleeping kin will wake to friendship rather than fear." The ceremony was interrupted by an urgent communication from the Deep Space Monitoring Station at Galactic Edge. Admiral Torres, now commanding humanity's expanding exploration fleet, appeared on the main display with barely contained excitement. "Council leaders, we've found them. The last 2 Void WYRMS. But there's something you need to know. They're not alone." The assembled crowd fell silent as new images appeared on the display. In the vast emptiness between galaxies, the final 2 Void WYRMS floated in hibernation, but they were surrounded by something unprecedented, a massive structure that defied classification. "It appears to be artificial," Admiral Torres continued, "created by the WYRMS themselves over millions of years. A city or perhaps a temple built from reformed dark matter and crystallized spacetime. We're detecting energy signatures unlike anything in our databases." Emma studied the images with the intense focus she usually reserved for her favorite picture books. "It's not a city," she said finally. "It's a nursery." The simple pronouncement sent shockwaves through the assembly. If Emma was right and her insights about Void WYRM behavior had never been wrong, then the galaxy was about to discover something that would change everything once again. Dr. Lisa Chun, now director of the Human WYRM Cultural Exchange Program, stepped forward. "Emma, how do you know it's a nursery?" Emma pointed to specific patterns in the structure visible on the display. "See how the pretty swirly parts all point toward the middle? That's where the babies sleep. The big ones built it to keep them safe while they grow up." Starwing's mental voice resonated with sudden understanding and overwhelming emotion. "Wormlings, my people's children, hidden away when the galaxy grew hostile to our kind. I had thought them lost forever." The implications were staggering. If baby Void WYRMS existed, it meant the species wasn't dying out. It also meant that humanity's success in befriending their ancient guardians had potentially saved not just 7 individuals, but an entire civilization. Emergency councils convened across the galaxy as leaders grappled with this new reality. Baby cosmic entities would require entirely different protocols than their adult counterparts. More importantly, their existence suggested that the Void WYRMS had been planning for a future they hoped would be more accepting than their past. Emma, meanwhile, was already planning her next adventure. "Mama, can we visit the baby dragons? I bet they'd like to meet other kids. Maybe some of my classmates could come too." The idea of organizing a playdate between human children and infant void WIRMS struck most adults as either brilliant or terrifying. Emma saw no distinction between the two possibilities. The expedition to the WYRM nursery required unprecedented preparation. 3 fleets from different galactic sectors converged on the coordinates, while Starwing and Dreamweaver served as advance scouts and cultural ambassadors to their hibernating kin. The awakening of the final 2 adult WIRMS proved different from the others. These were the eldest and most cautious, having spent eons protecting their young from a hostile galaxy. When they emerged from hibernation, their first response was defensive aggression, until they sensed familiar mental signatures. Sister Song. The female WRM's psychic cry of joy resonated across dimensional barriers. And Stranger Song too, but warm and welcoming. How long have we slept? Starwing's response carried millennia of sorrow and recent joy. Too long, Nest Guardian. But the galaxy has changed. Small wise ones have taught us new harmony. The male WYRM, ancient beyond measure and bearing scars from conflicts before recorded history, studied the approaching fleets with suspicious eyes. Ships approach our sanctuary. Do they bring destruction as before? Emma's small voice cut through the tension with the clarity of a bell. Hello, Grandfather Dragon. I'm Emma and these are my friends. We came to meet your babies and make sure everyone's happy. The title Grandfather Dragon seemed to amuse the ancient being. His mental laughter was like the sound of stars being born. Grandfather? Yes, I have been guardian of the young for longer than your species has existed. Are you the small one who teaches friendship? I just share cookies and try to be nice, Emma replied matter-of-factly. It's not hard. The Grandfather Dragon's response would be quoted in philosophy texts for generations. Perhaps wisdom comes not from complexity, but from remembering what we knew before we learned to fear. Permission to approach the nursery came after 3 days of careful negotiation. Emma served as primary ambassador, her natural empathy bridging the gap between human diplomatic protocols and WYRM emotional communication. The first glimpse of baby void WYRMS left every observer speechless. They were magnificent, each one roughly the size of Earth's largest whales, with scales that shifted through rainbow spectrums and eyes bright with curiosity rather than ancient sorrow. They're beautiful, Emma breathed, watching the young WYRMs play among crystalline formations that served as both toys and learning tools. They look so happy. The baby WYRMS sensed new minds approaching their sanctuary and responded with the fearless curiosity of youth. They projected feelings of welcome and playfulness, emotions so pure they brought tears to observers across multiple species. Emma's first direct contact with a wormling became one of the most documented moments in galactic history. The young creature approached her ship with obvious excitement, gently nuzzling the hull while broadcasting feelings of delight at meeting someone closer to its own developmental stage. Hello, little star, Emma said softly. I'm Emma. Would you like to be friends? The wormling's response was a sound that translation matrices rendered as pure laughter. The first time anyone had heard a void WIRM express uncompromised joy. The sound rippled through space, causing aurora-like effects in nearby nebular gases. Over the following weeks, the galaxy witnessed something unprecedented. The beginning of the first generation of void WIRMS that would grow up knowing friendship rather than fear. Emma and a carefully selected group of children from various species became the first interspecies playgroup in cosmic history. The changes were immediate and profound. The young WIRMS learned games, stories, and concepts of cooperation that their adult guardians had forgotten existed. In return, they shared perspectives on space and time that revolutionized scientific understanding across the galaxy. Emma's favorite wormling, whom she named Sparkle, for the way her scales caught starlight, became the first void WIRM to visit Earth. The sight of a baby cosmic entity playing in Emma's backyard, while her mother served lemonade to various alien diplomats, became the iconic image of the new age. The small ones learn so quickly, observed the Nest Guardian during one of these visits. Already they understand concepts that took us eons to grasp. Perhaps this generation will bridge the gap between our kinds permanently. The Grandfather Dragon's assessment was more direct. The children show us who we could have been, had fear not divided us from the galaxy's other children. As Emma's 10th birthday approached, plans began for an unprecedented celebration. Representatives from every known species requested permission to attend, while the Void WIRMS planned a cosmic light show that would be visible from dozens of star systems. "It's just a birthday party?" Emma protested when she learned about the scope of the planned festivities. "We don't need to make it complicated." But the galaxy had come to understand that nothing involving Emma was ever truly simple. Her birthday party would mark the official establishment of the Interspecies Youth Exchange Program, the signing of the Children's Friendship Charter, and the opening of the first human WYRM educational cooperative. On the day of celebration, Emma stood in her backyard surrounded by friends that defied imagination. Human classmates played alongside young Zephyrians, Vortak children shared snacks with Corellian cubs, and, in the sky above them, baby Void WIRMS performed aerial dances that painted temporary constellations across the heavens. Starwing's voice touched every mind present as she spoke the words that would define the new age. "Today we celebrate not just the birth of one small wise one, but the birth of understanding between all who share the cosmos. May the friendship that began with cookies grow to encompass every star." Emma, cutting her birthday cake while Sparkle watched with obvious delight, looked up at the assembled beings from across the galaxy and smiled. "Thank you for coming to my party. I hope we can all be friends forever." The promise in those simple words echoed through space and time, carried by Void WIRM voices to the furthest reaches of the galaxy. The age of cosmic loneliness had ended, replaced by something beautiful and unprecedented. A universe where friendship was the most powerful force of all. As the celebration continued into the night, with children of a dozen species playing games while ancient cosmic entities shared stories of stars and time, one truth became clear to every observer. Sometimes the greatest changes begin with the smallest gestures of kindness. Emma had offered cookies to a lonely dragon, and, in doing so, had taught the galaxy how to dream of a better tomorrow.